Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Actually, now the other co-host, Michael Reed, is joining us at this very moment, so I should have waited. But regardless, the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. It's the day after Super Bowl Sunday. It's a happy day. The Eagles lost to the Chiefs, and we are rejoined by the funniest man in Virginia, Mr. Michael Phillips of the Richmond Times Dispatch. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, sir. How did you enjoy that Super Bowl?
I enjoyed that Super Bowl. That was a satisfying Super Bowl. The Eagles lost, which I think we can all get behind. Patrick Mahomes is fun to watch. I thought Rihanna was good. I no complaints here.
Yeah, and it's really crazy to see Pat Mahomes. I've been saying all day, the dude is an alien. The fact that we were talking about that ankle all week, you could tell he wasn't healthy, but the fact that he still ran and scrambled to get them in the field goal range was just absolutely incredible. The guy is just...
I will say I do think he fixes injuries a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I think he sizes it because that dude will get hurt. He'll be limping. It'll look so crazy, and then he'll run to the locker room fine. You're like, what are we doing here?
It's almost like what Philly was doing with Jalen Hurts, but we don't need to get into that. We don't need to talk about Philly. All right. One thing that was said over the Super Bowl weekend, Michael, I want to get your opinion on, was LeVar Arrington had a comment to reporters saying that a fresh start is needed for ownership of the Washington Commanders. Regarding that, has there been any developments as of late? I know the latest that I heard that Josh Harris toured Ashburn and other areas. What's the latest?
Yeah, they're soliciting offers, I think would probably be the best way to put it. People are putting in their bids. They're kicking the tires. What we heard from the beginning was Roger Goodell wants to wrap this up by the league meeting, which is last week of March. That's ambitious. That's aggressive. I've never bought anything for $6 billion personally, but I understand it to be a complicated process. I don't believe they have picked the buyer yet. I don't know if Bezos is in or out. I don't know if anybody knows if Bezos is in or out yet. So you've certainly got some big things that you get. One, you got to figure out if it's him or not. And if it's him, you negotiate it out with him. And if it's, beyond that, if it's not him, you got to sort out these bidders, get the deal done. I think it's an aggressive timetable, but I make it a point to not bet against Roger Goodell. He's a guy who gets things done.
Now, I know you're not there, you're not in the knowings, but just based on what you've heard, do you know how many bids have been put in?
The number is higher than 7 for sure. I have heard 11. I wouldn't take that to the bank. You're going to have people come in and out. You're going to have people say, the price is too high for me. Or you're going to have people reading that, hey, maybe the price isn't as high as you think, and jumping back in. So I think it's a somewhat fluid situation. You start with the list of people who bid for the Broncos and didn't get it, and then add on your DC people and all those names. You're going to have silent bidders too, people who we haven't heard their names yet, and we haven't heard from them yet, but are actively in the process. That's the scariest thing as a reporter, right? Like there's going to be the names, but where did that person come from? Right. And then we're all just like scrambling on Wikipedia. It could be any. It could be any of these people still.
Yeah, I thought I knew about every rich person ever, and ever since this, I found out I barely know any of them, and I'm super kind of bummed about it. But so this is actually a question from one of our listeners to the show, Washington Command Center, and he just wants to know. I mean, with all the rumors going around Eric Bienemy, and of course they're bringing in Greg Roman, but how could you reconcile bringing in somebody with Eric Bienemy's past into the Washington building?
Okay. I get the question. I think he's a perfect fit with Ron Rivera, though. I think that's a great pairing. I don't know. I think that you're looking at somebody working with Ron Rivera as opposed to somebody working for Washington or for the ownership or for what the building is. I don't know. I think Ron has earned his trust so far in terms of ability to develop people and his ability to manage people and whatever it might be. So no, I don't think I would have any concerns there in terms of that person working for Ron. Do I want them to be team president. Like that's probably a tighter vetting at this juncture, given everything we've been through over the last few years. But I think Ron's earned a pretty wide latitude. I mean, you'd point out, like, he kept Jack Del Rio around after his controversy, and nothing ever came of that. Like, the defense played hard for him. It was a great season.
If anything, he just pretended like quarterbacks were the Capitol building. He just stormed them all season long, you know?
I think Ron just did his thing and kept things moving. So that guy's got an incredible ability to focus the staff and focus the players.
And before you go, Hall, just real quickly, Sean Payton made headlines by saying that potential ownership for the Commanders were bidders, were asking him to come be the head coach of the Commanders. A lot of people have brought up there's some animosity in that relationship between Rivera and Sean Payton. Have you heard anything like that? What do you make of Sean Payton's comments?
I think Sean Payton's going to lose to Patrick Mahomes for the next 4 years. So, and give him one last gasp here before he goes off to his fate. I mean, who could watch a Super Bowl and think, yeah, Russell Wilson can hang with that next year? Yeah. Like, that's a tough gig to take. This scares me not from the Sean Payton perspective, but like the Kevin Durant trade this week. That dude had owned the Suns for like a minute and a half, and he traded 4 first-round draft picks for Kevin Durant. Like there's a splash factor. Broncos ownership signing Russell Wilson 10 minutes after showing up. New ownership will want to do something big and splashy, and that scares me because that is not how you win in the NFL.
That's what Snyder did.
Right. We've lived through this. We've seen this. Yeah. The trading draft picks for Sean Payton, it would be hard to convince me that's a good idea. And to be lining it up for some kind of like short year change, that's what scares me, is that like, I own the team. I've got to push all the buttons. I've got to make a big splash. So hopefully cooler heads prevail there.
Yeah, you would hope that he would want to come in and hire the GM first and then possibly go to the head coaching route, like a normal team should operate. But look, it's Washington. I'm whatever, Sean Payton, whatever you say. Sorry, Hall. Hey, your microphone's off. Yeah, your microphone's off. I think you have it on the wrong one, but it's fine. Now, the next question I have for you, in regards to Eric Bienemy, I know that the Commanders have reached out to him in order to schedule an interview. I'm not sure if that has been solidified yet or not, but also Greg Roman, somebody I thought would be a really smart person to at least interview about the offense and the running game. What have you heard about those two, the latest?
Yeah, Roman's coming in Tuesday as we tape this is the plan. So that's more imminent. My understanding is Bienemy is waiting until after the parade in Kansas City. So
do you know if he's agreed to the interview?
I don't know if he's agreed to the interview, but I would be really surprised if he doesn't.
Okay.
I think he will come to Baltimore and Washington. I don't know in which order. I don't know that it matters in which order. I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to like jump at the first one and not go to the second one. Right. Because you don't want to burn bridges with either the Harbaughs or Rivera and that. So I think he'll do both. I don't know how parade scheduling works, so that's as far as I can take that. Presumably they'll do that soon, I guess. So I would guess they'll both be done. Ron told me he wants his OC in place by the end of the week. Feels like a reasonable timetable. Feels doable.
Wait, by the end of the week?
I mean, he's interviewing Roman Tuesday, and if he gets Bienemy Thursday.
You're right. I guess
somebody Friday.
I was thinking maybe the parade would be in a week or so, but maybe it's in days. To your point,
yeah, we're not too keen on how championship parades work around here.
Yeah, we're new to it. It's foreign to us. Hall, are you there yet?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to go ahead, Hall?
What's up, man?
Yeah. So, stole my Greg Roman question. Mike wasn't working, but so now that the offseason has basically started, you've seen the Eagles make it to the Super Bowl. They have a bunch of free agents coming up. They got to pay Jalen Hurts. The 49ers obviously are a great team, and if they get the quarterback worked out, then they'll probably be in the mix as well next year for Super Bowl contention. My question is, as of right now, obviously the NFC is the weaker of the two conferences, with it being pretty top-heavy with those two teams. Where would you rank the Commanders as of right now in the NFC?
Yeah, well, we'll do NFC East first because obviously the Eagles are better. I'm not convinced the Giants are better if they stand pat. I still like these guys over the Giants.
If they have the refs, they are.
I think I'd take him at 3 with the Cowboys hanging out at 2. There's so much talent in Dallas that I would love for them to keep Mike McCarthy around. I think that's good for business for us as that goes. There's more talent on the Dallas roster, but like, is anybody picking them to make a Super Bowl anytime soon? I mean, I'm missing that if it's happening. Nobody's going to want to hear this, but look, this team's on pace to go 9-8 again next year. Like that's, it just feels like this is a team that's built for 9-8. The 16th draft pick, right smack dab in the middle. Maybe a wild card next year. It just feels like that's what they're built for. And I'm still surprised they didn't get it this year. I mean, all they had to do was beat the Cleveland freaking Browns. Like, I don't want to keep coming back to that forever, but I feel like we're still inside the statute of limitations where I can say all they had to do was beat the Giants or the Browns at home, and they couldn't do it either time. Like that still astounds me to a degree. They're better than those teams, I think.
And that was coming off of the bye week too, Michael.
Yeah. But I don't think you'll see a wholesale changing of anything this offseason. Obviously, the offensive coordinator, and he'll bring in his people. But I do think that more likely than not, Sam Howell's your quarterback. Your skill players come back. You're big, whatever you do with Payne, I think Payne will be here next year, whether that's, tag or long term. So your big splash is going to be maybe an offensive lineman, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't think it's going to be a major overhaul from what we saw in the field this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I've seen pretty much a lot of fans like saying that, I want to see Sam Howell, which obviously everybody pretty much wants to see Sam Howell. But I think everyone just has it in their mind that, if he works out, then, hey, we have our guy. We're going to win 10 games next year. And if he doesn't work out, then we'll be picking in the top 5. And my thought the whole time is this is Washington. So, like, the worst possible scenario is probably going to happen, and we'll probably end up with 8 to 9 wins again, right in the middle of the pack again.
It's what we do. It's a specialty.
Absolutely what we do.
Real fast. You did say that you expect Daron Paynes to stay here. Just real fast. What do you expect his contract to look like?
Yeah. So I mean, that's one of your ownership complications, right? Like Dan Snyder ain't cutting a signing bonus check like that. You just forget about that. So depending on when this sale closes, you may have to tag Daron Paynes and tell him, why don't you hang tight for a few weeks? We're going to go find the owner so that he can cut you a check. I think a Daron Paynes open market contract is 4 for $80, $20 million a year. I'm not here to make a value judgment on whether it's worth it or not. I just think he's going to get that, and I think they'll offer it here eventually. So I do think he stays.
And to your point, Michael, you did say earlier that sometimes these new ownerships like to come in and make some big-time splashes. Lamar Jackson sitting up there in Baltimore. That is sitting there for that new owner if they really did want to make that happen. But now, to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you, Michael. Chase Young's 5th-year option, Rivera talked about not picking up the 5th-year option, which is $17 million, kind of a challenging Chase Young. Do you think that is 100% what's going to happen, and do you think it's going to be received in the right way?
I don't know how it's going to be received because, I mean, that's a relationship that's had ups and downs because, you think about him missing mini camp, and obviously that graded on Ron the wrong way, but, they found their groove together. At times as well. So they got some working things out to do along the way. I'm very curious how this one plays out because I don't know that Chase's camp is going to love hearing that. I'll be curious what it means for the offseason work, but I think Ron's leaning towards it. And I think it sends a message as we change ownership groups here. Hey, Dan Snyder's not here anymore. Like I'm calling these shots and I haven't seen enough. I don't know if I agree with it, but I sure respect it.
Yeah, as do I. And correct me if I'm mistaken. Did I hear or see that they have announced that they've begun talks with Daron Paynes?
Yeah.
Ron said he wants to reward Daron Paynes for his hard work during the contract year.
Okay.
I can tell you, yes, they're talking. I'd be pretty surprised if anything heats up before that tag deadline. They make that call because the tag's 19.5, I think 19.4, somewhere in that ballpark. So if you're Daron's agent, you wait for them to put the tag on. That's your starting point. You say anything you get, has got to start at 19.4 a year because that's what you're going to get if you hold tight. So I'd be pretty surprised if you see substantial movement before then.
Yeah, we remember that from the Kirk Cousins contract fiasco, where his agent kept saying that's the starting point. Then we'll talk. Next question. Next question I have for you. I've asked you this the last time you were here. I know I only have a little bit longer. I know I got you. But what's more likely to happen? Taylor Heinicke returns as the backup quarterback, or Eric Bienemy as the OC?
Ooh, that. I think Bienemy's a 50-50. I think he's going to be here or Baltimore. I think Heinicke's going to have more options, and I don't think this team will make him the top financial offer on the board.
Wow.
Give me Bienemy.
Wow, so more likelihood that Bienemy comes the OC than Taylor returning as a backup. That is fantastic.
I like that answer.
I like that a lot. Last question I have for you. Now looking ahead into going into the offseason, do you see any surprise restructuring or possible release cuts?
That's always a great question. Yeah, you know, there's always that one was it Ioannidis? Not Ioannidis.
Morgan Moses was late. Yeah,
Morgan Moses. Yeah, there always seems to be one that sneaks in. I'm curious what happens with Curtis Samuel personally. That's what I'm interested in watching. What kind of deal, you know, if you give him, you know, a new contract, you know, what that looks like for him, because you feel really good about Jahan Dotson right now, but you also say if you can keep the three of them. I mean, when they were cranking, the three of them looked really good together. Antonio Gibson into his final year. He's not getting an extension here, I wouldn't think. You know, is he possibly a guy who could get moved somewhere along the way? Charles Leno. I don't see how you can go into a season with Charles Leno as your starting left tackle next year. There was too much slide too soon there in the second half of the season. Everybody likes him. He's a great dude. I would love to see him come back in some capacity, but saying he's the unquestioned starting left tackle for 17 games, I just don't know if that's a great idea.
As always, you were fantastic, Michael. But really quick, very, very quickly, Cole Holcomb, do you think he returns?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate it, Michael, as always, for being able to bless us with your intellect. You really gave us a lot.
Wait, one more. I'm just kidding.
One more.
I really do appreciate it, Michael. I hope you have a good night. Enjoy the week. I hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. Have a good offseason, sir. I hope you you earned yourself a vacation. I hope you go enjoy that.
I'm on it. All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Michael.
All
right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Michael Phillips. That was awesome.
Dude, surprising to hear that he thinks that Bienemy's more likely to come here than Taylor Heinicke coming back.
I'm very surprised to see that. And because Taylor was on Pat McAfee's show last week, obviously, for the Super Bowl, and talked about how, you know, Sam Howell's a dog. That's going to be the number one. I would be happy. Because the way Pat McAfee, of course, because you and I, we've complained about it before. He's very negative when it comes to Washington, obviously. And he has good reason to be so. But he's like, do you want to go back to all that craziness, turbulence, you know? And Sam's like, I would love to go back there. I mean, Taylor's like, I'd love to go back there. And that's why I love Taylor and his beer
Taylor
belly.
handles it well. He was also like, straight up, being a backup quarterback is probably the best job in America. Like, why wouldn't I want to?
I mean, he's not lying.
No,
not lying at
Dude,
all.
Being a practice squad quarterback,
Look at Chad Henne.
6 figures, doing nothing.
Chad Henne collected 2 rings, and you just better
if I was
coast off
dude,
as a millionaire.
Yeah, if I was Brett Favre, I would have never retired. Imagine that. You're just on the practice squad making $800K a year doing nothing.
Maybe he wouldn't be stealing from the public institutions, you know.
And maybe then he would be able to find more assistants.
He might sue you. I don't know. He might put a lawsuit out on you.
Before we are joined by our next guest, let's get into our prospect breakdown for the NFL draft. So for each episode, we pick one prospect that we are going to break down, to look at, to explain to you guys just what we saw and who we think this guy is and who we could project to be. So Reed, if you want to start first.
I can't go first. I got to pull mine up.
Okay, that's fine. I'll go first. But I don't think Hall's ready either. But mine that I looked at was Blake Freeland, the left tackle from BYU. He is a junior. He is 6'8", 312 pounds. He is a junior. But per NFL Draft Buzz, they have him as the overall 89th ranked prospect, but and they also have him as the 11th ranked offensive tackle. The only thing I disagree with NFL Draft Buzz, they say he's a better pass blocker and he's a run blocker. I think that's flip-flopped. I feel like in the run game, he is very crucial in the end line. Like, he would be good in a zone scheme. Whenever he has to put his hat on the guy next to him, push them, drive them down the line of scrimmage, incredibly effective. But in pass sets, he's easily beat inside. And he wasn't really, when he has control of you, he has it. But when he gets that control taken away, it's hard for him to re-engage. So he is strong. When he has his grasp on you, he is good. He's going to hold you tight, and he's not going to let go. But for the most part, if you get his hands clean, you can get around him. And he is a more later round prospect, in my personal opinion. I think he can groom into something, but he's not like your athletic left tackle. He's more like my brother Michael, whereas, he's a big body, a train. Once he gets moving, it's hard to get him to stop. But if you have to ask him to shift left or right and be quick or be with acceleration, not going to happen. Very hard to do so. So against those strong, like faster defensive ends, he's going to struggle against. So he's more like a later end prospect, but I feel like that's somebody that you could plug in as a backup for you later on in this draft, and you feel good about his upside being in the run game. So I think he's a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker, but that's just me. And also, he recovered 2 fumbles in the games that I watch. I only watch a handful of games, so all coaches love that.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. I like Blake Freeland. I think he has a chance to play at guard too in the NFL. I think that positional versatility.
My only issue with him is that he plays very high, and when you're a guard, you have to be able to use leverage. And being at
he's also 6'8".
Yeah, and being at 6'8" is I think that's going to be kind of hard for him. But he is very top heavy. He can be pushed over from his top half. He's very off balance at times.
Remember though, Josh Gordon played high too. It worked out for him. So my prospect is going to be Jalen Jones, the cornerback from Texas A&M. He's very interesting, dude. Jalen Jones, 6'2", 205. He is athletic as hell. He was a 5-star recruit coming out, Under Armour All-American. Just big signing for Texas A&M, and he's had some injury concerns. He hasn't really been on the field like this past season. I think he only had like 11 tackles or something. Nothing really outside of that, but he's very, very good. You can see when you watch him why he was such a high recruit. He really uses his athleticism well. I think he's probably better in zone than he would be in man in the NFL, at least just where he can really use his athleticism to kind of read the quarterback and then try to go jump in front of the ball. But he just got to stay on the field. But he's somebody who I think you would probably see on day 2. And he's definitely somebody that you could really take a flyer on and possibly work out with the right coaching staff. He just, like I said, really got to stay on the field, zone heavy type cornerback. He's not really physical as of right now, but that's something that he can work on because he's 6'2", 205. I mean, the dude's got it all, and he's got some sick dreads. You know what I'm saying? So.
Sick dreads, bro. And this past weekend, we were able to finally celebrate Christmas with the Colonel, so he was able to meet Corey, and it was just a total catastrophe. He brought his dog, and so the whole time it was just loud, barking, kids crying the whole time. But it was a really good time. But he sent us this question in, and dude, he started talking in German to me out of nowhere, and it was crazy, by the way. But now this next question is from the Colonel.
Hey, man, I'm gonna let me do my prospect.
You don't got
Come on.
All right, now we don't got much time. I want to get this one in. Who's your prospect, Hall?
Nah, I was gonna do Osiris Torrance.
I haven't done it yet, so if you want to go.
Nah, it's all good. I just clicked out of it.
All right. The Colonel's question is, please use your crystal balls and tell me what you think is going to happen with our defensive tackles and defensive ends as their contracts come to a decision point. There's no way we can keep all these first-round picks and afford them unless we neglect our other positions of need. Reed?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the thing that we've been concerned about with drafting all these guys so early in round 1. And that's where it kind of comes down, like when Jonathan Allen, of course, he already signed his deal, and he's somebody you really want to keep. And kind of generating interior pressure has really been our bread and butter. They did bring in Fedarian Mathis, but I really think that they like that rotation on the inside. So then that brings it to, like, if you can only keep one on the outside, is it going to be Chase Young or Montez Sweat? And I mean, I would imagine that they would try to keep Chase Young, but he's got to prove, he's got to stay on the field. He's got to play well. He hasn't had the stats to back it up yet. So that's tricky, man. But I would imagine that they would attempt to keep Chase Young, but that's not saying that they couldn't keep Montez Sweat if they don't see enough from Chase.
The big question here, Colonel, I think, is what they do with Daron Paynes. I think they're doing a lot of lip service at the moment, saying what they want to do with Daron.
That means like kissing him and stuff.
I don't think they really know, to be perfectly honest. It's all based on what Daron wants to do long term. Right, but if they do sign Daron, you'll already see the implications of paying your defensive line. What we're seeing happen to the offensive line. We had to pay Terry. We had to pay Jonathan Allen. You see what happens now. The offensive line is degrading. You can't pay Brandon Sheriff what he wants. You have to go to bargain bin. You have to go get Charles Leno and offer him a contract after he did really well in his first year. And then obviously Chase Rouillet is up there, but that's still a big question because he's been injured. So I feel like the neglect you're already seeing on the offensive line, but you can replenish that through the draft. I feel like it's an easy way to be able to do it in a sense. But I think that what's going to end up happening is that Montez Sweat's going to be the long-term guy. And what has to happen for him this year, for him to be the long-term guy, he has to wrap up those sacks. He generated a heck of a lot of pressures this year, but if he can get sacks as a defensive end with his athleticism, with his length and his speed, I think that that's somebody that other teams are going to be coveting, because you need pass rushers, and that's somebody whose skill set you can't just grow on trees, so to speak. So with Montez, I feel like Montez is going to be the one that gets retained long-term. And look, it could easily be Chase Young as well, but Chase Young's going to be a lot more expensive, just bigger name. But that being said, if Chase Young has a big year this year, all of that could change. And look, both of them could be balling out, and maybe they live up to the hype of the prediction they had a couple years ago. But that's far to see at this point.
It's funny because their last names combined was my nickname in high school, Young Sweat, and that's because I would sweat constantly through my shirts. So like people would always judge me for it. But it's pretty cool to see, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Little tidbit there for you guys.
Awesome. Sick, bro.
Always nice to drop some life facts in on the pod.
Do you have anything to add, or you want me to start the next question with you?
No, yeah, I was just gonna say pretty much what you said, that I think that if you've just been following the trends of the defensive line, Jonathan Allen in his contract year breaks out. Daron Paynes in his contract year has a breakout year. I think it's Montez Sweat's turn this upcoming year in a fifth-year option kind of contract situation to have a breakout year. And I'm with you. I think that long-term, I think Montez ends up being the guy, and Chase ends up walking somewhere else in free agency, or they don't pick up his fifth-year option, whatever it may be. But, I mean, at the same time, like you said, I could definitely see Chase Young turn around and have another, like, a better than he did rookie season, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like, what do you do next? But
dude, imagine Chase Young being the run defender that he is, with the speed and strength that he has. Imagine if it clicks with the pass rushing with Ryan Kerrigan, because I feel like that's the biggest difference with Chase between his rookie year and this past year is Ryan Kerrigan. Ryan Kerrigan comes back, and he comes back from injury, and Chase Young looks great. You know what I mean? And I feel like that has a lot to do with Ryan.
Imagine either one of them, man. They both just have such freakish skill sets that it's like, dude, either one of them, if they turned it on and it just clicks for them.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, this next question, Hall, I want to go to you first from the Colonel. I think we are still recovering from the massive amount we gave up to RG3 10 years ago. I don't think the organization will swing for the fences and go for someone like Lamar Jackson, even if there is a possibility. There's too much chaos going on with ownership, OC search, and our question at quarterback to make that a huge of a decision. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my thought all along has been the only way Lamar Jackson is a commander is two ways. Either the new ownership comes in, like we already heard that they were talking to Sean Payton behind the scenes and whatnot, or some of the ownership groups that are putting bids in.
Like I said before, that could mean anything, because they said it was a potential bidder. That could have been RG3.
Yeah,
Sean Payton, if I were to get the commander somehow, would you be my coach? And Sean Payton's like, yeah, I was going to hit up by potential bidders.
Yeah, but you know that, like, whenever a new owner comes in, like, they want to always make a big splash and kind of put their staple on the franchise. Like, hey, I'm here. I'm making a move like this. This is the kind of aggression that we're going to move forward with as me as an owner. So I could definitely see if a new owner came in and he said, hey, I want a franchise quarterback to start my reign as the owner. I can see them making a trade for someone like a Lamar Jackson, or if he gets franchise tag, which they're going to tag him, he plays 1 year in Baltimore and then he hits free agency the following year. I can see it definitely a sign and trade with the new owner being like, hey, I want to put my staple on the franchise. But those are the only two ways I see it happening.
We already have a loaded running back room, though. So
that is true. Now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Ethan Cadeaux of NBC Sports Washington. Thank you for joining us on this Super Bowl Monday, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Always fun joining you guys. Happy to be back.
I appreciate you as always and being able to come on here and talk with us, sir. But I want to get your reaction to that Super Bowl from yesterday. The Kansas City Chiefs edged out 38-35. Do you think that the Eagles were screwed out of that game by the officials?
A little bit in the moment. I 100% did. I thought the call was kind of bogus, to be honest. And in that position, I tweeted out, I was like, you don't throw the flag in that spot. But when James Bradbury says it's a holding, when Juju Smith-Schuster says it's a holding, when the ref says it's a holding, who am I at home watching on my couch to be like, damn, it wasn't a holding? Like, those are judgment calls. You can make that anytime, any place, and on any call. It sucks that one call is pretty much how the season ends. The Super Bowl, one of the best Super Bowls we've seen in recent memory, fireworks in both halves. But the one thing I will say, the Eagles had every chance to win that game. You shouldn't let Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs score in every single possession of the second half if you want to win the Super Bowl. It just doesn't work like that. And I thought the halftime adjustments from Andy Reid, Eric Bienemy, who I'm sure we'll touch on in a little bit, and the rest of that Kansas City squad was just, they were running laps around Jonathan Gannon and Nick Sirianni and those guys. So the call is what a lot of people are going to remember. But at the end of the day, the Eagles had every chance to win that game too.
Yeah, it's awesome to see in Philadelphia right now. I mean, there's 150 injured, 12 dead, $2.5 billion in damage, and zero horse shit has been eaten, and that's a good
surprising. Surprising. It's good horses.
Nobody died.
The one thing I was going to say about that penalty, because everyone keeps talking about Bradbury, but I think that game was won on 3 plays. The 2 touchdowns being where they would have like Kadarius Toney go in motion and then pop back out to the outside, and it was wide open twice for touchdowns. Then the third one, that guy goes in motion and does the same route, and Bradbury, now realizing it, tries to hold on to him so he doesn't lose outside. They see it and throw the flag. So we could say it's like, I always felt like, yes, we could say it's ticky-tack, but it was like you could see that they were trying to adjust to that, and Andy Reid was pressing them, and they caught him in it. And look, that's what those 3 plays it came down to. But my next question for you that I have, who on one of these teams possibly is going to be a free agent would you be wanting to take a look at for the Commanders?
Orlando Brown's the biggest one. I know the Commanders have Charles Leno at the left tackle position, but anytime you can upgrade at such an important spot, I feel like you at least have to kick the tires. Orlando Brown could easily slide in at left tackle. Charles Leno played right tackle to begin his career. You can bump him there, move Sam Cosmi to guard, and all of a sudden your line looks a lot better than it did at the end of last season. There's a bunch of smaller guys that are free agents on both teams. I wouldn't say there's really anyone I'm certainly keeping an eye on. Juan Thornhill is a really good defensive back for the Chiefs, but I think he's going to get paid, and I'm not sure that's going to be here.
There's a certain name I'm looking for.
I don't know if you're going to get it out of me, honestly. Those were the big
Maybe
two.
throw him some hints or something, Kyle.
Isaac Samelo, the right guard from the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
He had a penalty yesterday. I think it was a false start or something, but he's going to be a free agent. I feel like that's somebody you could plug in because a big dude. He's consistent. He played 15 games this year.
Yeah, I candidly haven't fully dove into free agency stuff yet.
I put you on the spot, Ethan. It's okay.
No, I'm here for it. But yeah, like if you asked me that in 2 weeks, I'm sure that name would come up. Right now, I'm kind of just still focusing on the end of the year and the draft and all that good stuff.
Yeah, shout out to Orlando Brown and the Chiefs offensive line too, man. Against that Philly pass rush, no sacks.
Did you see what he said? Put it on a
put it on a t-shirt. Yeah.
Right.
Such a cool thing to do. Yeah, the guy's a monster.
Right.
I think I would love him.
So, same. He's the crown jewel of the offensive line class this year
for sure.
He would improve a lot.
Reed, do you have a question?
Huh?
Do you have a question?
Nah.
Which position? Which position are you leaning towards in round 1, Ethan?
If you asked me this like at the end of the year, I would have thought offensive line, but I want a cornerback. I feel like this cornerback class is really deep. The depth at that position in Washington is horrible.
Yeah.
But behind Kendall Fuller and Benjamin St-Juste, Danny Johnson played well. You can't go into the season counting on him to be the guy that steps up for a whole 17-game season. Obviously, Porter from Penn State would be the dream. I think he's off the board by 16, but a corner is definitely the direction I would go right now. I think there's a lot of good ones and we've seen in the past few years, corners that used to be one position that it took time to translate in the NFL. You've seen guys like Patrick Surtain, Sauce Gardner, even Derek Stingley had a decent year in Houston. Yeah. So I think if they can get an impact corner in round 1, I think that could be huge for a defense that's already losing its defensive backs coach in Chris Harris.
My man. That's why I like Ethan.
Yeah. So jumping back kind of like to the Super Bowl, we saw 2 teams that were kind of built 2 different ways. You got Jalen Hurts with the rookie contract, and they put like a lot of pieces around him, pretty much like a just overall top to bottom great team. and you have the Chiefs who paid Patrick Mahomes a lot of money and just put some smaller pieces around him, not like the Tyreek Hills, the flashy names outside of Travis Kelce. My question is, for Washington, what does Washington need to do to get to that point of either of those two teams to be playing in the Super Bowl one day?
Clone Pat Mahomes.
Yeah. Number 15 ain't walking through those doors in Ashburn.
Well, we can get Jackson probably for a budget. Give him the keys to the Washington Commanders TikTok, and that dude will go off.
Before I answer the question, the fact that Jackson Mahomes, was completely silent pretty much this year, I don't know what Pat said to him in the offseason.
You know what it was? He met with him and Brittany during the offseason because the Chiefs, after last year with like the whole Ravens debacle thing where he threw water on fans and stuff, apparently the Chiefs were like, Pat, you got to talk to your brother and your fucking wife and tell them to chill out because they're the only thing negative about our team right now. And Pat had to sit them both. I swear to God, Pat had to sit them both down and be like,
"You're right,
guys. You guys got to chill, stop, back off, let me do my job, stay out of the media, okay?"
Yeah, he said it over a game of Wii tennis, apparently.
Wow. Well,
good for them. And Jackson was like, I can't get out of here. You're famous for doing arm dances. What?
I mean, sorry, Patrick Mahomes has the best 5-year resume of any quarterback ever, and this might be as big of an accomplishment as he's had. But
that's a good one.
But anyways, I think the way the Eagles built their team is a lot more realistic, just because, not saying Sam Howell is going to be anything close to Jalen Hurts. That'd be unfair to him and pretty much anyone in the whole situation. Having a quarterback on a rookie deal is the biggest luxury in the NFL. If you can have a good player at the most important position, not taking up 20 to 25% of your salary cap, then you have the ability to go get guys like James Bradberry in the offseason, go trade for AJ Brown and give up draft capital. I mean, the Eagles, they have a big decision to make this summer. Do we pay Jalen Hurts $45 to $50 million, or do we let him ride out the last year of his rookie deal and try and run it back they have like 10 key free agents. I know Bradberry's going back to the open market as well, I'm pretty sure. So building a team around a young rookie quarterback is definitely the best way to ascend to success. But number 15 and the Chiefs, I mean, you see them lose Tyreek Hill and they win the Super Bowl. Like, how many teams can lose a top 3 receiver in the NFL and be just as dynamic on offense? It just doesn't make any sense, besides the fact that Patrick Mahomes is great and Andy Reid is also great.
Right. And I mean, Eric Bienemy, the dude is obviously, we know what he brings. Also, rumors are, or not rumors, I mean, they have something scheduled. Greg Roman, we heard on Tuesday, tomorrow, something coming up. So looking at both of these guys, they're both very successful offensive coordinators. Obviously, Eric Bienemy, different level right now. Just, I mean, in terms of, what he just did, I think he really proved to a lot of people last night how good he is as an offensive coordinator. But which of these guys do you think fits this offense better? Because, I mean, you look at the strengths, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. I mean, we know Greg Roman's more of a run-oriented coach, despite not being a running back like Bienemy. Right. But who do you think fits this team better?
So I think the easy answer is Eric Bieniemy's offense does, just because of its creativity and all the motion and just the ability to all these short passes and get the ball into the playmaker's hands. I mean, that's what Washington needs to do regardless of their offensive coordinator. They need to establish a good, quick and intermediate passing game, because you have 3 guys who can take it the distance anytime they touch the football. You have 2 really good running backs. I mean, Brian Robinson, I'm expecting to make a big leap. Antonio Gibson's a really good pass catching back that just really hasn't been able to show it. And then who knows what happens with JD McKissick and all that. Bieniemy's the right answer, but I think both him and Greg Roman would be light years of improvement over Scott Turner's offense. And I'm not even saying that as a slight to Scott Turner. I like some of the things he did, but we've seen Greg Roman find success with wide receivers that literally wouldn't start for like D2 teams. It just doesn't make any sense. And if they could get him, I think he would really take advantage of Sam Howell's running ability too. I think that's one thing a lot of people aren't giving him credit for. They know he has the big arm and nice touch and all that, but this guy ran for 850 yards his final year at UNC. We saw it in that Dallas game. He has the ability to escape, extend plays, but also run, like simply run. And if we saw in the Super Bowl too, you can't just have a quarterback that can sit back there and throw. The biggest play Patrick Mahomes made all day was that 26-yard run at the end of the game.
Yep.
So
absolutely,
I think both both the creativity of Roman and Bienemy would be significant improvements. I think if you told us the day that Scott Turner got let go that those were two realistic candidates, I think all of Commanders land would look at you kind of crazy. So
Right.
I think Ron Rivera has a big chance to get an off-season win. We haven't said that term in a while, but I think hiring one of those would be a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah,
I
and
still
Ethan,
don't
I really,
understand it.
Ethan, I really do appreciate you saying that the Ravens have a D2 sort of like kind of wide receiving core, because Rashad Bateman's on that.
Always
And so
have.
that's
They
all,
have for 20 years.
We just got to have that discussion to make sure these guys know about Rashad Bateman. Now, to wrap up
Such
this,
a Rashad Bateman hater.
To wrap up this interview, only a couple more questions for you, Ethan. Chris Harris obviously accepted the position with Tennessee. He's moving laterally. What do you think of that position? Is that more of like an issue with Washington, or do you think that he's kind of seeing the future, what's going to happen, and he's just getting out now? And then who do you think is going to be the replacement?
I'll answer the last one first. It sounds like it's going to be an in-house hire. That's what Ron Rivera said on Radio Row. I'm not sure exactly what direction, but I wouldn't really expect it to be any sort of flashy hire. Chris Harris leaving is a big deal. I don't think people really understand how big of a role he had in developing not only Cam Curl, a 7th round pick who's about to get paid, Derek Forrest, Benjamin St. Juste, keeping Kendall Fuller. Like, he had a really good second half of the year.
He got
William
the most out of
Jackson's
Danny Johnson and co.
Yeah, Danny Johnson played really well. There's like, you go up and down the secondary, a lot of these guys made strides under Chris Harris. And I think the vocal leadership he showed, I mean, he was always the loudest one in practice, training camp. I think he's just really seeing a new opportunity in Tennessee. He's also gets to be their pass game coordinator defensively, so a little bit more responsibility. I think that's kind of the next step for him as he hopes to eventually be a defensive coordinator and maybe more than that. I wouldn't be surprised if he's only in Tennessee for 1 year, and then this time next year we're talking about him filling a DC role and then potentially down the line being a head coach. I mean, he has the personality, he has the respect of players to climb the coaching ladder rather quickly too.
And now, Ethan, last question I have for you. Besides Daron Paynes, do you see anybody else getting a deal in this offseason that's currently on the team?
I mean, a Montez Sweat extension would be nice. I don't know if it happens. I think until we know what happens with Daron Paynes, I think it's hard to forecast what they do with the rest of their roster. If he's gone, I could see them maybe making a decent move in free agency, but like prioritizing guys like Cole Holcomb and a bunch of other like lower level free agents to bring back. But if they do sign Daron Paynes, I think that's going to be their big move of the offseason, and everything else is going to be a bunch of 1 to 2 year deals and a bunch of depth and veteran players.
So you don't expect Cam Curl to get a contract this offseason?
That just completely went over my head. My bad.
No, you're good.
Yeah, it would be a mistake if they don't sign him.
Have you heard anything
before the year? I haven't heard anything recently. I wouldn't expect those talks to heat up until the summer. Honestly, if we've seen in the past 2 years, Jonathan Allen's deal got done the day before training camp.
Right.
Terry McLaurin's got done in early July, but that was also 3 months after the A.J. Brown trade and extension. Right. So we've seen the Commanders take their time. I think if we get to training camp and then Curl doesn't have a deal, things could start to get dicey. But it's also, from his point, he has to – in Washington, everyone like loves Cam Curl and they think he's a great player. But around the league, I'm not sure if the view is the same. I think everyone thinks he's a good player, but I think he could potentially – I think he means more to the Commanders' defense than he could potentially mean to a different defense if he were to go, if that makes sense.
I got you.
So,
I don't want to test out that theory at all. I want him to know that jersey. Ethan, I can't thank you enough for joining us and being able to talk about the Super Bowl and the latest news and greatest. I really do appreciate you taking some time out for us. Make sure you get you on here again in the near future before we get into the draft. That way you get all summed up on the free agents and I'm not throwing you under the bus again while we're recording.
No, I appreciate it. That's what you're supposed to do. So thanks for having me on again. Always fun joining you guys.
I appreciate you, Ethan. I really do.
Appreciate it, man.
Have a good week. I hope it goes by fast for you. Is it Friday yet? Have a good one, Ethan.
See you guys.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Ethan Cadeaux. That was awesome, dude.
It always is.
Yeah.
Ethan's always such a good level-headed guest. Like, for him to say that he thought that the Eagles kind of got screwed there at the end, I will never say that. I will never admit that, because I think if anybody deserves it, it's Philly. But I don't even think they got screwed, to be honest. But that just shows you how level-headed he is.
Yeah, I was saying, yeah.
Oh, so dude, so was I. I was like, he grabbed his jersey,
Right.
though, bro. You
Oh
know?
my goodness! So I just realized this whole time that my microphone was low as hell for some reason. So I'm
Good,
sorry,
good.
everybody.
Love
So
that.
I'm
Love
glad
that.
that the last 15 minutes is going to be really high for no reason.
Just
Oh
like
my
Hall.
Yeah, just no reason whatsoever. I apologize, everybody. This episode's probably a wash because of it, so that's my fault, man. My
Dude,
Sounded regular in my headphones. I
no,
mean,
if I
that's
don't
because
get
I use a different recording for the Zoom, so that's why you don't really
Uh,
hear it. But
if
this
that
next
affects me getting 50 cents from YouTube this year, I swear to God, dude. I
Hey,
swear to God, I will
this
never
next
forgive
question is
you.
from Tony Franchise. What do you guys think about Sean Payton's comments about a potential owner asking him to be the next head coach of the Commanders? Thank you, Tony. What do you think, Reed?
I think Sean Payton's a little attention whore. That's what I think. I think he like we talked about, like you guys touched on a little bit earlier, it doesn't necessarily mean it was anybody. I think that different owners, different groups that are trying to buy the team were trying to touch every single base that they could. They're trying to see what splashy moves they could make. They're trying to see who would be interested in coming here before they bought it. They were trying to make all sorts of moves. So I don't think it really means much. I think that there's constantly discussions going on behind the scenes that we don't hear about that. And I just think Sean Payton just loves to blabber and spill the beans. And I also think that Kevin James was a terrible pick to play him in that Netflix movie about them, about the Saints.
Yeah, with Sean Payton, it definitely does seem like there's some animosity there between them, and I was kind of wondering if he was going to catch any flack amongst like his peers in the NFL because Ron Rivera is a respected coach. It's not like
Yeah.
he's hated around the league like Snyder is. So throwing Rivera under the bus, essentially saying, "Oh yeah, some potential owners like wanted me to replace you."
They wanted me more.
Yeah, exactly. It's very disrespectful to do. I know a lot of sophisticated people like Arch from the Twitter Spaces said, if anything, you just keep your mouth shut. But obviously, Sean Payton maybe just might be a narcissist, a little full of himself. But I don't really care. Go enjoy Denver. I didn't want to trade for you anyway. I don't think Sean Payton's all that great. Yeah, he did well with Drew Brees, and he did. He built a great team. Really did. Did really well with them. But I think he's not that good.
I don't know. He
I
has
wouldn't say not that good, but
Yeah, I was
they were
like,
a contender
he has,
every
like-
year. But
like 8 out of his 10 seasons coaching. He had like a winning record and like top 5 offense. But he's not that good. But anyway,
he's not that good.
I mean, in the beginning, at first, I was like, I didn't really mind it. I know everyone was like, "Oh, that's so disrespectful," and blah blah blah. And it's just like, I guess I can see why people are calling it disrespectful. But at the end of the day, I'm like, majority of the people knew that when a new owner was coming in, they were probably going to get rid of Rivera anyway. So like, my whole thing was like, why are people surprised? Like, obviously, Sean Payton probably should have kept it to himself.
Right.
And like you said, he strikes me as someone that likes to hear himself talk and have people talk about him and hear people talk about him. But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't see it as disrespectful to Rivera. It's just one of them things where it was behind the scenes talk that people knew what was going on, knew it was going to happen eventually at some point when the new owner took over. It's just happened that it got out during the Super Bowl week. But at the end of the day, I mean, it is what it is. I wouldn't have wanted to trade for Sean Payton. I forgot we had to like trade for him. That would have been whack, giving up draft picks for him. But yeah, I mean, he's a good coach. And I think that he'd have been best for Sam Howell's development because obviously he takes quarterbacks and gets the best out of them. Look what he did with Jameis Winston coming off the 30 for 30 year. But yeah, so Sean Payton, like Michael Phillips said, have fun losing to Pat Mahomes twice a year for the next couple of years. So yeah,
it's
and he
weird
wanted
too.
Rex Ryan to come in as his DC.
Yeah.
Please do.
And Sean Payton,
yeah, that would have been a weird move.
he was throwing a lot of teams out there too. Like he was when they would like do interviews with him and stuff on Fox or CBS, whatever channel he was on. I don't know, whatever. And he was always like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna go meet with the Texans next week. I'm gonna go meet with these people next week. I think that they want to trade for me. I'm gonna go meet with blah." And it was just like, dude, shut up.
Well, I watched The Herd. Yeah, I watched The Herd. I like have it on my desk at work
Colin Cowherd's
sometimes.
a nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, I like Colin Cowherd, but he had Sean Payton on like every Monday throughout the whole entire season. They became like good friends, blah, blah, blah. So once Colin Cowherd was like talking about the report where he's waiting for a team to get their ducks in line, and he was like, "Oh, that screams Commanders to me." Right then and there, I knew there was already going to be some smoke to Sean Payton coming here because, again, those dudes talk every single day. They go out to dinner a lot. They become like really good friends. So I knew there was going to be some type of Sean Payton to the Commanders news coming out. Didn't expect it during Super Bowl week, but yeah.
Yeah, that's why they do it. That's when it gets the most glamour, right? But now this next question is from Jeff Miles in the Discord chat server. Reed, what OC other than EB, Eric Bienemy, is the highest priority?
I thought you meant EB from the Junkies. I
Yeah.
think he'd be a great candidate for the offensive coordinator position.
I was like, God, please don't. No, just get them out of here just for good. Honestly, I'm going to go with Greg Roman. I would be very interested to see what Greg Roman would do. Like we talked about, they haven't had any wide receivers out there in Baltimore. We know that he can get the most out of the run game. At least he did it with Lamar Jackson. Who knows? But I think Greg Roman would be a very, very good hire, and I was also interested in Anthony Lynn, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's really between these two at the moment.
I think that Eric obviously is number one. I think I would put Anthony Lynn and Greg Roman in the same bin, essentially. Both do really well with getting the most out of their running backs. And behind that, I would put Byron Leftwich. I do think that Byron is a very good offensive coordinator, and he kind of stretching the field, attacking deep downfield, it kind of matches our wide receivers and what we need to be doing. So I've always thought that Byron would be a good add here, and things just didn't work out their last season. I felt like something was up with Tampa, altogether. Brady retiring, unretiring, guys coming back out of retirement, and offensive line being banged up all year. It just didn't seem like Tampa was in the right footing. I mean, they couldn't even win. I mean, they had a hard enough time winning the NFC South, with how bad it was, so which says a lot. Now, this next question is from Orange Crush 92. Reed, question for the pod: do you feel like this NFL season as a whole felt wonky from a competitive sense?
Yeah, I mean, you can totally see right now, like the power balance is just so out of this world in favor of the AFC. There's maybe the Eagles is basically the only team from the NFC that you can look at, and the 49ers, I guess, to an extent, but like they still have so many questions with like at the quarterback position. Like, was that a fluke with what's his face? I don't even remember his name. He says Brock Purdy, or what are they going to do? So I think just the power balance is so odd, and it really just starts with the quarterbacks. Like, you look at the quarterbacks in the AFC compared to the quarterbacks in the NFC, it's really weird. I don't like it,
Yeah, it was wonky from a sense that there was maybe 3 teams in the NFL that really just pummeled everyone out throughout the season, being like the Bills, the Eagles, and then obviously the Chiefs. But then you still have these other teams that actually made a good mark, like the Vikings had a great record as well. So it was very top heavy in a sense where you knew that those teams were legit, but that's typically how it is every season. And I did think that everyone was very competitive because, like, you're looking at it like Detroit. We looked at it like, okay, yeah, Detroit could be a very hard game, but we also are considering it's the Lions. They could fall off, but then the Lions are very competitive. Same thing with the Jaguars. How many times that week 1 did we say we could see them making the playoffs?
Yeah,
we could see them doing something with Doug Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And like that kind of thing where it's almost like it is kind of things are turning, where the Steelers aren't the same juggernaut that they were before. They've taken a step back. The Ravens, kind of a shell of themselves from 3 years
the Bengals are a
ago.
Super Bowl contender.
Right. So like it's very different in that sense, but I think it's a good thing. It's just the growing of the NFL, and I've always noticed that Washington does better when Pittsburgh does poorly, and so when Pittsburgh was on their run in the dynasty era, Washington wasn't really doing anything. In the 80s when Pittsburgh was kind of, that's what Washington does well. So I'm keep hoping the Steelers keep doing poorly.
Right. Just to add to it real fast, Hall, my bad. The NFC East was also weirdly competitive, all 4 teams. So
it was
tight.
And I love how people talk about Carolina and stuff about with Steve Wilkes and everything. I'm like, dude, but look at the division. I mean, give him his flowers, but like, don't be talking about him and Rivera not being able to do it. Look at the division, dude. That's kind of screwed up to do. Now, this next question that we have, boys, is from the Discord chat server from Digital Guru. Kyle, ask your panel if they think Washington will pursue one of these second-tier quarterbacks as a backup. Also, if they think Taylor is headed for Las Vegas with Scott Turner.
I know Taylor, when he was on Pat McAfee, said that obviously his dream would be to play for the Packers just because that's like the team he grew up loving, Brett Favre and all that. But there's been a couple discussions with a couple teams. Washington's probably in that discussion of those couple teams. But with Scott just getting out to Las Vegas, he's not even like offensive coordinator. He's just like a pass game coordinator. I don't know if he's going to have the clout enough to like talk to Josh McDaniels and be
That's
like,
what
hey,
I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know, like enough clout to be like, hey, we need to bring this guy in, blah 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 blah.
Like is Josh McDaniels looking at Scott Turner like, oh, thank goodness you're here, dude. What do you think we can do? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see where Taylor ends up. I'm sure it'll be with a team that either has like an established like veteran quarterback and he's backing them up, or he might be a backup to like a young like a Texans type of guy, type of type of team where they draft like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud and he's the backup to one of them. Or maybe he starts like the first couple games of the season before they jump in there. But what was the second part of the question?
Do you think that Taylor's headed for Las Vegas? Do you think Washington will pursue one of the second tier?
Yeah, I think they're going to go after a guy like Jacoby Brissett or someone like that, like Mitchell Trubisky. Hopefully, he doesn't. It's all good. Sam Howell just punched him in the face.
Dude, do you remember when everyone was advocating to bring in Mitch last year to be the number one?
Yeah, of course, starter? And then he flamed
And
out
before
because
that, it was Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And then he got flamed out because he got punched in the face by Deontay Johnson because he couldn't get him the ball.
That's not true, though.
I know. I saw Trubisky say it wasn't true. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely
going to get punched in the face. You're like,
exactly.
No, it's not true.
Yeah, man, he really hit me real good. I should have gotten the ball more.
Yeah, I couldn't do my job, so he punched me in the face.
Yeah, no, they're definitely going to bring in a veteran to. If you're not watching the video, I'm doing air quotes. Push Sam Howell in a competition, but more than likely, obviously Sam Howell's the guy, and then they're gonna have a lesser tier quarterback kind of come in to be the backup and maybe like an insurance plan. Maybe if Sam Howell gets injured or Sam Howell somehow, some way takes a step back from what he showed in the last game of the season.
I totally agree with you. I do think it all is very funny how this all has shaped out. I don't know what goes on with Taylor because I don't know who's going to have the money to be able to bring him in. And I will say that if it's under $4 million, I think it's smart to bring him back here. I know that there's people out there like you should bring Taylor because he did a lot for you, and I understand that he could definitely help us out in a fly if we really needed it to. But it's based on how much money, right? Because if it's more north to $10 million, I'm saying no, dude. Let's keep that money. We need that for other people in other positions. So if it's under 4, I think that's mortgageable. I think that's something you could really be okay with. But I do think they're going to go after the vet backup quarterback. The question is, who is possibly going to be there? Obviously, I love a guy like Jacoby Brissett to be able to bring in here. He's shown you that he can start for many games in case of injury, which we know here in Washington. Quarterbacks get injured here a lot. And so we need some stability, and Jacoby Brissett could definitely do that. But he doesn't blow the doors off of anybody. But another name is Tyrod Taylor. Obviously, local boy, went to Virginia Tech, was drafted by the Ravens and helped them, has gone around the league. But just a veteran presence, that smart guy could come in and kind of lead you from the back end and be able to orchestrate your offense like it's supposed to without turning over the football.
Right. Who knows?
I thought there was going to be a lead you from the back end joke coming from Reed.
I was just about to make one. Yeah. And who knows more about leading from the backside than Kyle Ronick? You know, I don't think many people would.
Hall
the guy
butchered it. Hall butchered it.
No,
I think he's usually fast with it. I was like, he missed that one.
No, I don't know what that was, dude. Now this next question is from Tim Towner, Reed. He asks, what was your favorite / least favorite commercial from the Super Bowl?
Dude, I could barely even watch that many commercials. Well, I got one, obviously, but James the whole time was bitching at me because I wouldn't put on YouTube, and he just wanted to watch YouTube songs. And I was just like, dude, what? Just be a 2-year-old. Just play with toys. I don't know what to tell you. But obviously, the one I almost got in a lot of trouble because as I started calling Lindsay, I was like, you bitch, as soon as the YouTube commercial came on, and it looked like Greg Olson and them were getting the channels changed on them. I thought she was changing the channel, and that wasn't the case. So I apologize for that.
I did see a guy tweet say he has to make up his relationship with his mother-in-law because he thought that she changed the channel on him. He called her a bitch. Yeah, I thought that was very funny. My favorite commercial was the E-Trade one with the little baby faces with dudes in suits, and they're talking about what they're him and his boy are talking about what they're going to do in the day. I thought that one was hysterical. But besides that, I didn't really get to check out the commercials. I'm not a commercial guy.
Yeah. I think the Busch Light commercial, that one was pretty good. That was pretty funny.
Oh, the Bud Light one. We were talking about the what was it? The waiting music when you're on call.
Yeah.
I've definitely done that
good.
before. I've definitely done the dance before.
As far as the one I didn't like, I mean, I don't know the rest. I can't really remember.
The rest, I can't really remember. That's a good one. Thank you, Tim. This next question from Tim. Number 1, what's with all the scrum concept the Eagles ran on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1? I always thought that was against the rules, and now it looks like a rugby game broke out. He's not a fan.
Yeah, so I guess the rule is that you can't pull players forward, but you can push them forward. So technically, I guess what they're doing is legal. I'm surprised that nobody's really attempted it until recently, like other than the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts squats like 600 pounds. So like obviously he has like the leg strength to just push the pile like that with a bunch of other people pushing him. But I was hearing somebody say earlier on the radio that they think that the competition, someone from the competition committee, is going to bring that up this offseason as like making that like not a thing anymore. But we'll see.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts naturally, when he's down in his stance in the snap, he's naturally very low to the ground already. So all he's going to do is follow that center straight forward, and it's going to be easy for him to be able to, and obviously his squatting makes it easy. Look, do we need to really say that Philly is very petty, and they look for any way possible to do what they need to do to win? That's what they do. Bill Belichick is the same way, but he does it more in like a classy manner. Like he makes you work hard to find out that he did
putting a camera in like the locker room. And stuff.
Right. Like he's more like a Martha Stewart. He's more like a Martha Stewart kind of like criminal. You know what I mean? Whereas Philly's more like R. Kelly in a way.
Nick Sirianni's almost like like a witch doctor. He tried to cry to get blessed by the forefathers during the national anthem. That's why he was crying. He was trying to use his tears with a little bit of American juice so he could do a seance and get blessed by the forefathers. But it didn't work, and it's because
Reed's woke. He knows what's up.
Yeah, beyond woke. Speaking of woke, what's up with all these balloons, guys? What's up with all these UFOs?
What's with all these balloons? All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. I can't thank you enough for joining us. I'm sorry about my sound. I'm not sure when this happened. I think I might be wrong, and it might have happened right after I clicked with Ethan and it changed it, because otherwise I don't know why it'd be that low. But if it is, I'm very sorry, guys. I screwed up. Won't happen again.
How low is it? Is it like Jalen Hurts taking a snap under center low, or what? Or is it like Kyle in the club when Into Club from 50 Cent comes on low? Rocked. Just
stupid. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. We'll see you guys again on Thursday. Enjoy the week. Hopefully, we'll have some good news by the end of the week. Like we said, Rivera City hopes to have the OC in place by the end of the week. So fingers crossed.
I hope it is. I'm tired of seeing tweets. Why would Eric Bienemy make a lateral move to Washington? Tweets every day on my timeline, 100 times a day.
They literally said career suicide. That's what they said multiple times. Is what they said. Career suicide is what the words that were used.
Hey,
I'm just saying
that you can't use that word on the internet anymore.
I took
man.
screenshots, baby. That's all I'm saying.
You haven't caught on with that yet? You can't say that word on YouTube anymore. You can't say that on the internet. What? It's called unaliving yourself. It's not called suicide anymore. I swear to God. Look it up on TikTok.
That's insane. Don't say that then.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll
2023, man.
We'll see you again on Thursday. Let us know if you have any prospects you want us to break down, of course. And then shout out to Kayla Powell, who is our guest on Thursday. She said the Super Bowl she thought was going to come down to a special teams play. That Kadarius Toney punt return was mighty huge. I will say that. So Kayla called it. Good job, Kayla. Yeah. All right, everybody.
You know who didn't call it? You, because you said it was going to be low scoring. Oh, burn.
Oh, I said it was going to be like 69-0. So I was close.
I said 100-0 at first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, but I really did think that they were going to have a harder time originally. But I think I was very impressed with the Eagles pushing the ball downfield to Devontae Smith and AJ. They were very good at that early on. But otherwise, all right, everybody. I downplayed it. I did just because I hate the Eagles. All right, everybody. We'll see you again on Thursday.
City.
I'm Kyle.
I hate that city. It's so bad. It's so gross.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday.
It's the city of brotherly love. What kind of incestual remarks is that? You know,
all right, brothers. Washington football.
Slapping balls.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!